Its wooden sides had been weathered down to colorlessness, but the roof and windows looked newly installed. As he approached, Harley saw his reflection in the mirrored finish of a small window set at eye level. Before he could knock, the door was opened by a short, bull-necked man wearing a threadbare gray flannel suit. The man's perfectly rounded skull was covered by a thick mat of light brown hair, roughly trimmed to a uniform length. His facial features were rubbery. His mouth was loose and slack. "It's me, Luther," Harley said. The short man nodded deliberately, as if agreeing with a complex proposition. His slightly protuberant eyes were as smooth and hard as brown marbles, reflecting the moonlight over Harley's shoulders. Wordlessly, he tilted his head to the left. Harley stepped past the slack-mouthed man into what looked like a modern two-car garage. A charcoal-gray Lincoln sedan was poised on the concrete slab, its nose pointing toward a wide, accordion-patterned metal door. Conscious of the other man somewhere behind him, Harley opened a door in the back wall and followed a passageway to his left. He paused at the threshold of a large, low-ceilinged, windowless room. One wall was lined with file cabinets, another with bookshelves. Various chairs and a pair of small couches were scattered about, all upholstered in the same dark brown leather. Most of them were already taken. A few of the seated men glanced expressionlessly at the new arrival, the youngest man in the room. The far end of the room was dominated by a lengthy slab of butcher block, laid across 4 sawhorses to form a desk. Behind it sat a massive man in a wheelchair, like a stone idol on a gleaming steel and chrome display stand. He had a large, squarish head, with wavy light brown hair combed straight back without a part going white at the temples. His ears were small, flat against his skull without lobes. Heavy cheekbones separated a pair of iron-colored eyes from thin lips. His nose was long and narrow. A dark mole dotted the right side of his jaw. The man was dressed in a banker's gray suit, starched white shirt, and a midnight blue silk tie, with faint flecks of gold that occasionally caught the light. On the ring finger of his right hand was a blue star sapphire, set in platinum. The man glanced at his left wrist, where a large-faced watch on a white gold band peeked from under a French cuff, then looked up at the driver of the Chevy. "I was held up at the gate," Harley said. "Seth took about a half a day to—" Harley took a chair. A thin man with a sharply receding hairline and long, yellowing teeth continued a conversation already underway. "You sure he's the guy we need for this?" "Red Schoolfield says he is," replied the man in the wheelchair. "Yeah, but that's Detroit. We're just, You ever been to Detroit, Udell?" the man in the wheelchair asked. He waited a 3-second beat and then said, "Okay, then. How about Cleveland? You ever been there either?" "I was there one time," the thin man said, his voice wavering between resentful and defensive. "Good. Now that's a big city, too, am I right?" "It is, Mr. Beaumont. They got buildings there you wouldn't—" "We're not arguing," said the man in the wheelchair. "In fact, you're right. Cleveland is a big city." He shifted his position slightly so that his glance took in the entire room. "But here's the thing, boys. Detroit and Cleveland, they got one thing in common. You know what that is? A lot of niggers?" A jug-eared man sitting in the far corner ventured, grinning. "Yeah, Farron," Beaumont acknowledged. "But you know what else they got? They got a whole ton of folks just like us. White people." "But that don't make them like us," Harley ventured. He twirled one of his ducktails, a nervous habit. "Now you're using your brain, Harley," Beaumont said approvingly. "Being white's just a color. Doesn't make us like them or them like us. There's things inside color. Even the coloreds themselves see it that way. Look who they pick for their preachers and their politicians. It's always the light-skinned ones, with that processed hair. The ones that got white in them, you don't see them mixing much with the ones look like they just got off the boat from Africa. And it's the same with us, with white people. Inside that color, we got all these groups, like tribes, all right? You got the Italians, you got the Irish, You got the Jews? What's this got to do with Detroit and Cleveland, Roy? Asked an older, broad-faced man with eyes so heavily flesh-pouched that it was impossible to tell their color. That's getting to it, Sammy, Beaumont said, nodding his head for emphasis. Look, there's neighborhoods in both those cities where there's mostly people like us, understand? Hillbillies? A tall redhead with long sideburns said, chuckling. He was wearing an Eisenhower jacket over a thick sweater, despite the warmth of the room. You know I don't like that word, Lyman, the boss said. We're not hillbillies. We're mountain men. And this town, it's our mountain. Understand? There was a general hum of agreement from the assembled men, but no one spoke. People like us were clannish, Beaumont continued. We want to live among our own kind, even when we're feuding amongst ourselves. You go to any city, even as big a one as Chicago, you'll find a section where our people live. And that's no accident. Those pieces of the city, it's just like this town here. You understand what I'm telling you? Red Schoolfield, he's in a bigger city than this one, sure. But only a little piece of it belongs to him. What we got here, it's all ours, not just some slice. The whole thing. The man in the wheelchair paused, individually eye-contacting each man in the room before he went on. You all know how it works. Remember when we were kids? You got yourself a candy bar, what happened? Some guys, they'd want a little piece for themselves, right? And if they were your pals, well, you were supposed to cut them in. But there was always this one guy. What he wanted was the whole thing, am I right? Nods from around the room. The broad-faced man added a grunt of assent. Now, if this guy is bigger than you or tougher, what do you do then? Well, you got choices. You can stand and fight, make him take it, but all that gets you is a beating. So the thing you do if you're like us, you give up the candy, and you wait for your chance. Then you ambush the guy, maybe bust up his head with a brick. And next time he sees you with candy, well, he keeps walking. Or even better, you get a few of your pals, the same guys you would share with, and you mob the motherfucker. Pound him so bad he don't want any more. Ever. You can't change a bully. The best you can ever do is make him work. Make it cost him something. They don't like that. So they go and pick on someone else. That's where all this started, boys. What we have now. And the first rule is, always, you make sure you control your own territory. Maybe it's only a tiny little piece, but it's yours. Now once you got land, a piece of ground that's really yours, you can't just let it sit there. You got to do something with it, am I right? More nods. Sure, I'm right. And I'm not talking about naming it after yourself the way old man Locke did back when he opened the first mill, before any of us were born. I'm talking about making your living from it. Land is money. You can farm it, or you can brew mash on it, or you can open a little roadhouse, or, well, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you get something going. Beaumont's iron eyes swept the room, a seismograph, searching for the slightest tremor of inattention. Satisfied, he went on. You can see it happening everywhere you look. The Irish, the Italians, they can run a whole city, but not by themselves. When they want to do business with people outside their tribe, and you know they have to do that, they need branch managers, I guess you could call them. And sooner or later, those managers, they see how things work, how much money there is to be made. They want to go into business for themselves. That's what we did. That's how we got started here. We built up a beautiful thing for ourselves. We got the gambling, we got the girls, not just the houses, the strip joints too. We got the jukeboxes, we got the punch cards, we got the liquor, we got money out on the street working for us. And when dope hits this area hard, the way it has up in the big cities, we'll have that too. But remember,